I've been employed here in Nova Scotia for the past 20 years. And I'm going to say, I'm going to talk about what was my favorite job that I had and the worst job that I had, the most job that I hated the most out of all employment that I had here in Nova Scotia. And I'm going to talk about challenges that most young Nova Scotians and baby boomers here in Nova Scotia often face, and the challenges that most employees face here in Nova Scotia. And first, I'm going to talk about what was my most favorite employment that I've done here in Nova Scotia. That was when I went self-employed and worked for myself in the independent film business. You become your own boss. You are engaging something that you enjoy. To be successful in doing a job that you like to do is have a job that you're interested in doing, what you enjoy doing, because if you have a job that you do not enjoy doing, you're not going to be successful at it because you just don't want to be there and you don't like the job that you do. Having a job that you don't like doing will cause unwanted stress, unwanted an unwanted environment nonetheless, and that's a lot of things that people don't want. There's nothing worse than going to a job what we can't stand doing. Now, my the job that I did that I hated the most had been when I worked at the Lord Nelson Hotel in Halifax. Thumbs down, hated it. Not because I hated the job, because it was a disrespectful work environment. Working in the hotel business is often understaffed, overworked, not enough employees to do the job what it takes to get done. Unneeded issues that doesn't really need to be there. There was a lot of management that was hard to be management that should have been management because really the managers who was hired to be the managers really didn't know what they were doing. They really didn't. They were disorganized. They were lost in their own little world. And when you get a manager that's lost in their own little world, it creates a confusing, toxic work environment for the employees because it's bad enough that the managers don't know what they're doing. But now the employees don't know what they're doing because the manager doesn't know what they're doing in the first place. So it goes downhill. The Lord Nelson Hotel, in my opinion, was a disrespectful employment work environment. Your work was often looked down on by other employees and by the management. It was never any good. Often understaffed, like I just said. And when you have that kind of a work environment, it's best to walk away from the job site because there's a reason why the employer can't keep their employees with them is because they don't respect the work what their employees does for their company that who you choose to work for. And because of it, their employees leave to go elsewhere, do other things in the workforce because of it. And when you look at the hotel industry, if you see somebody working here over 10, 15 years, that's rare. That's very, extremely rare to see. The most that an average person will stay employed in the hotel industry is 2 years. They'll either quit or they'll find employment elsewhere because the stress level is so stressful that they can't bear it. I've seen people quit their job because of the stress, because the hotel business is understaffed and it's overworked. And because of that, people had left, and they really had. So the number one job that I hated doing the most was working at the Lord Nelson Hotel in Halifax and in the hotel industry altogether. If I could go back in time and change things, I would not have applied for that job at the Lord Nelson Hotel that I did. What was it, a 2-year span from 2009 to 2007 to 2009? If I could go back in time, I would not have applied for that job. Now, the number one thing that most employees in Nova Scotia face working here in Nova Scotia. Nova Scotia employers pay very little, but they want a whole lot out of the little money what they're paying out of the job tasks, what they require to do for the little bit of money that they pay out. Nova Scotia is paying taxes at a 16% tax rate. Go to Alberta, you're only paying 5 to 6. So why would you stay in Nova Scotia and pay 16% taxes when living costs is out of whack, when you can't afford to pay rent, you're struggling to pay your power bill, you're struggling to put food on the table because Nova Scotia's living environment is just not realistic. It's way out of reach. And because of that, I had seen people leave Nova Scotia. I really had. But at the end of the day, if I was to rate my number one place, what I liked working in my employment experience, in my employment career here in Nova Scotia, was working for myself in the independent film business. I'm an independent film director. Love it. I wish I started sooner. I got 10 years under my belt. How much longer I've been in it, I want to try to push for 20 years, but I have to admit, I love the job that I do, and I wouldn't trade it up for the world. You meet a lot of interesting people. You meet big names, like in 2011 when I was in filming in Toronto, I came across William Shatner. I met Dan Aykroyd when I worked at the Lord Nelson Hotel. Who was it? Ozzy Osbourne. I met him at the Lord Nelson Hotel, and I had to carry his baggage from his tour bus to his hotel room. I believe it was the 4th floor where he was staying on. And then I believe I got a call to deliver parcels to Keith Urban's room in the Lord Nelson Hotel. I believe his wife, Nicole Kidman? I believe she was there. Can't remember, I think she was there, but I haven't actually met her when she was there. But that's about the only good thing that the hotel business is good for. You meet the celebrities. Other than that, I wouldn't be investing my time in the hotel business or any business in Nova Scotia. I mean, if you can get a place to stay, board with somebody in Alberta, other parts of Canada where it's cheaper to work, you get paid a lot more for the hard work that you do, pay a hell of a lot less than you do here in Nova Scotia. My advice to you guys is leave Nova Scotia if you got the opportunities that can support you if you leave. Because you can't go to a province if you can't afford to put a roof over your head or feed yourselves. First problem. But if you can overcome that problem, do so. But when you look at Nova Scotia's employment, I wouldn't be engaging in it. I don't feel that Nova Scotia's employment is worthwhile engaging. Nova Scotia's employment is a disrespectful work environment. The Nova Scotia government allows it because they're looking for employment that will come to Nova Scotia, employers that will come to Nova Scotia. And the reason why the employers come to Nova Scotia is because the Nova Scotia government is very lacking on its labor code. You report an employer for unsafe work practices, the employer's going to say your work ethics is no good, then they'll just use that reason to terminate your employment, to let you go. Really, they're saying we're going to get rid of you, look for a reason to get rid of you because you made a complaint against us at the Nova Scotia Department of Labor. That happens quite a bit. And what's even more mind-boggling is the Nova Scotia government knew that this was going on for a long time, but they do very little to interact with that problem. Mental health. Nova Scotia will not hire people with mental health disabilities because the employer is scared to death of the person who has mental health disabilities, because they don't know what they're getting, they're scared of them, and not only are they scared of them, but the employers doesn't want to pay out on health care costs, because if they know if we hire somebody with mental health disabilities, they're going to have to pay out on health care for that person to afford their medications, what they need that keeps them well, be out in the community, whatever. And in my opinion, that is the number one barrier why most people with mental health disabilities cannot find employment in Nova Scotia, because of that problem right there. Nova Scotia employers does not want to pay out on health care, and because of that, people with mental health disabilities cannot find employment. And in my opinion, that should be illegal. But the Nova Scotia government allows employers to do whatever they want, and because of that, people with mental health disabilities is unable to find fair employment in the work field. So really, if you're going to rate Nova Scotia's employment sector, it's not an equal living playing field. It's not that. It's a discriminatory playing field, and it has to stop, and it has to be rectified. But it's just not one employer in Nova Scotia that does it. There's a lot of it. I'd say about 85% of Nova Scotia's employers discriminate against employers. They'll use that their work ethics is no good just to get rid of them, because they want to look for another reason, a cheaper way of operating their business, so they don't have to pay out on healthcare costs, bonuses to the employees. As they say, well, if you look for a reason to fire this person or lay them off, now if we hire somebody new, we can operate at a much cheaper rate. And that's Nova Scotia's employment. Not very good. So if there's somebody from Alberta looking at coming back to Halifax, Nova Scotia to find work, I wouldn't do that. I avoid Nova Scotia as much as humanly possible. But the other thing, what I've seen with Nova Scotia, what happens with employers on Nova Scotia is, let's say if a woman's pregnant, they'll say, oh, you're off too long. We're not going to keep you employed no more, we're going to get rid of you. That's another thing what Nova Scotia employers do that the Nova Scotia government allows to happen. My opinion is discriminatory. It shouldn't be allowed to happen. One time, if you were pregnant, and if you had to go on maternity leave, they fire you the moment you apply for it. They'll say, you're no good, your work ethics was no good, whatever, you're gone. My opinion, that should be discriminatory, and it needs to be dealt with significantly. And the only way how that is going to end is if the Nova Scotia government brings laws into effect that has teeth. There's laws in effect in the Nova Scotia employment sector, but there's no teeth in it. They got lots of rules in place that's in place to protect the employees in Nova Scotia, but there's no enforcement. So if you got no enforcement, then what's the point of having all these laws if you got no enforcement? And that's the other thing what's wrong with Nova Scotia's employment. I wouldn't go to it. But above all, Nova Scotia is a province that is in bad shape.